For 8,000 years, fava beans were prized as food and medicine. Then, just as scientists confirmed they could rival the world's most prescribed Parkinson's drug, something changed. Instead of a natural remedy, we got a costly pill and a medical system that treats this ancient superfood as irrelevant or even dangerous. But why did we erase the bean that heals? The answer upends everything you know about medicine, profit, and who gets to decide what heals us. Fava beans have shaped human history for more than 8,000 years. Archaeologists uncover their remains in Neolithic settlements across the Mediterranean and the Near East, evidence of a crop so vital that the Romans simply called it the bean. In ancient Rome, fava beans fed armies and peasants alike, providing a crucial source of protein long before wheat and meat-heavy diets became dominant. Egyptian tombs sometimes included bowls of fava beans, a sign that the living believed this humble food would nourish souls in the afterlife. Yet the bean's story goes deeper than food. Mediterranean folk medicine prescribed fava beans for strength, fertility, and mysterious ailments. In India, healers turned to the velvet bean, another legume rich in levodopa, for tremor disorders centuries before Parkinson's disease had a name. Even the Greek philosopher Pythagoras, famous for his dietary rules, warned his followers to avoid fava beans. Modern scientists now know why. A genetic condition called favism, common around the Mediterranean, can make the bean deadly for a small segment of people. In 1913, Swiss chemist Marcus Guggenheim isolated a strange molecule from fava bean seedlings, levodopa, also written L-DOPA. His lab notebooks show Guggenheim working with both Vicia faba and the Ayurvedic plant Mucuna pruriens, tracing a chemical thread that connected ancient remedies to modern science. At that moment, the world's oldest bean revealed a secret. Hidden inside every pod was a compound that would one day transform the treatment of Parkinson's disease. By the late 1960s, Parkinson's disease had become a proving ground for a new type of medicine. In hospital wards across the United States and Europe, patients who could barely stand were suddenly walking again after receiving carefully measured doses of a compound called levodopa. The transformation was so dramatic, neurologists called it a miracle. In 1970, the FDA approved the first carbidopa-levodopa combination pill. The drug swept through clinics and quickly became the gold standard therapy. For the first time, Parkinson's symptoms could be controlled, at least for a few hours at a time. The pharmaceutical version offered predictable dosing and a tidy prescription pad, but it was never the only source. Dr. Marcus, a neurologist with a passion for medical history, points to a small but remarkable set of studies. In one study, Parkinson's patients were served about a cup and a third of cooked fava beans. Blood tests showed a sharp rise in levodopa, matching levels seen after a standard dose of the pill. The improvement in tremors and rigidity lasted 2 to 4 hours, nearly identical to the pharmaceutical effect. In these short-term trials, doctors could not always tell whether a patient had eaten beans or swallowed a tablet. This was proof that the bean carried the active molecule. Elena, recently diagnosed and frustrated by side effects from her medication, began keeping a diary. After meals with fava beans, she noticed her hands steadied and her steps grew surer. The effect would fade by the afternoon, but for those hours, she felt almost normal. Her neurologist, cautious but curious, tracked her symptoms alongside her medication. The results mirrored the old studies. Beans delivered the same active molecule, and the relief was real. Yet outside a handful of research papers and patient notebooks, this evidence rarely entered the medical mainstream. The system had chosen its path. It would soon reveal deeper motives. By the early 2020s, the global market for Parkinson's drugs reached nearly $6 billion a year, driven by an aging population and steady growth in diagnosis rates. In the United States alone, about 1 million people live with Parkinson's, with another 90,000 newly diagnosed each year. For each of those patients, pharmaceutical companies can expect thousands of dollars in annual revenue, often between $200 and $500 a month for carbidopa, levodopa, the standard medication. That is before insurance, and for many, the out-of-pocket cost is even higher if they need brand name or extended release versions. Meanwhile, a pound of dried fava beans sells for about $5 in a typical grocery store. For those who grow their own, the ongoing cash cost drops to almost nothing after saving seed. The price gap is staggering. Over a year, a patient might spend up to $6,000 on pills, while the same active compound, levodopa, exists in a food that could be grown for pennies. Yet only the pill is covered by insurance. The bean, even with proven pharmacologic effects, is not. Dr. Marcus, who has spent decades studying the economics of neurological care, lays out the logic. You cannot patent a common food. Patent law protects synthetic drugs, combination pills, and new delivery systems, not the ancient bean itself. As a result, research dollars flow toward what can be owned and sold, not toward the food that anyone can grow. The system rewards exclusivity. The bean, no matter how effective, remains on the outside. The financial incentives are clear. Every patient kept on the pill is a lifetime customer. Every patient who could use a bean represents lost revenue. That is not a side effect of the system. That is the system. Doctors face a hard line drawn by the FDA. Drugs are regulated, foods are not. Even when a food like fava beans delivers a pharmacologically active compound, it cannot be prescribed or marketed as a treatment for Parkinson's disease without going through the same billion-dollar approval process as a new drug. Dr. Marcus explains that if a physician recommends beans as a replacement for standard medication, and a patient suffers harm, the doctor is exposed to malpractice claims and disciplinary action, and to serious liability. Guidelines set by medical boards and insurance companies leave little room for food-based therapy, no matter the evidence from small studies or patient diaries. Insurance only reimburses FDA-approved drugs, not groceries. Medical schools devote less than 20 hours to nutrition and almost none to therapeutic uses of food, so most doctors graduate with deep knowledge of pharmaceuticals but little training in food as medicine. The official warning against fava beans is rooted in a real genetic risk. Glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency, called G6PD deficiency, affects about 400 million people worldwide, especially in parts of Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. For those with this enzyme deficiency, fava beans can trigger acute hemolytic anemia, a sudden dangerous breakdown of red blood cells. Public health materials often stress this risk, urging broad caution. Yet for more than 95% of people, fava beans are safe. Genetic testing can identify those at risk, but the system treats the rare danger as a reason to avoid the bean altogether. This safety narrative, repeated in official guidelines, has become a shield that keeps a powerful food out of the medical mainstream, even as millions could benefit. Elena's diary entries soon found their way onto online forums where patients traded notes on fava bean dosing, recipes, and gardening tips. In these digital spaces, people compared symptom logs, shared photos of backyard bean patches, and debated the best time to eat a serving for maximum relief. Elena's posts about saving seeds and sprouting beans in cool weather sparked a wave of interest, especially among those looking for affordable options. Fava beans thrive in early spring, needing only basic soil and a patch of sun, traits that make them perfect for home gardens from California to Greece. Some forum members tracked their own symptom cycles alongside bean meals, building a grassroots database that rivaled small clinical studies. As more patients joined in, the knowledge base grew, blurring the line between folk remedy and citizen science. Parkinson's disease is set to become a global crisis. Epidemiologists now predict the number of cases could double by 2040, driven by aging populations and longer lifespans. Yet, for millions living in regions where standard medications are scarce or unaffordable, the only hope may come from what grows in their fields. Small clinical studies have shown that fava beans, a staple from North Africa to the Mediterranean, can deliver the same active compound as the world's leading Parkinson's drug. But these studies are limited, short-term, with just a handful of participants, and they lack the power to guide policy or change medical guidelines. The gap is glaring. The world faces a tidal wave of new cases, yet there are no large-scale, independent trials to test whether a crop that costs a few dollars per pound could offer relief where pills are out of reach. Elena's story, once a quiet experiment, now echoes the urgency felt by families and clinicians across continents. The question is no longer whether fava beans work in theory, but whether the world will invest in the trials needed to make them a real option for the next generation. Today, food that could ease suffering sits on grocery shelves, while millions pay for the same compound in a pill. As Parkinson's cases surge and healthcare costs soar, the question is no longer about access. It is about who holds the power to define what counts as medicine. What do you think?